clarify detail in the actual policy on IPv6 sub-assignments. The point here is when this policy was drafted, the concept of sub-assignment or sub-assignments was not considering, in my opinion, reading the text, a very common practice in IPv4, which is actually even amplified in the case of IPv6, which is using those addresses for things like point-to-point links, VPNs, and so on. In the case of IPv6, instead of a unique address, there is also a way, quite recently from ITF, to allocate to a single interface a complete /64. So it means not just a single address, but a complete /64. I think I mentioned yesterday also when I was doing my presentation about the BCOP. There is also the perception that if you are, for example, a university or a company, and a student or a teacher or an employee is bringing a device like his laptop or tablet or cellular phone, and this device is not from the company, is not from the university, that may become a problem which the definition of the actual policy for sub-assignments. So looking into that, what I am doing is looking at section 2.6, which is the general definition of assignment, which actually explicitly prohibits such assignments, saying that assignments, blah, 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 are not to be sub-assigned to other parties. From my reading, my understanding is a student, a teacher, an employee, the courier that is coming to your company to pick up a packet and is using the wireless while waiting, they are other parties. Okay, that's my understanding. So basically that's what I'm doing with this policy proposal, trying to clarify that and not really fighting against that. I want to allow that because this is a common practice. I am sure there are some universities here that have already IPv6 and provide IPv6 to the students, and they are offering end users, so IPv6 PI assignments. So I am not trying to say, hey, you cannot do that. What I am trying to say, let's make clear the policy so it's clearly stated that you can do that, okay? So what I am doing for changing that is in the section 6.8 of the policy manual, which is PI assignments for IPv6, whatever text is there, I don't touch that with this policy proposal, and then I add these paragraphs here. So the fact that a unique address or even a complete /64 is non-permanently provided to third parties on a link operated by the original receiver of the assignment shall not be considered a sub-assignment. And I am setting up some examples like guest employees, devices or servers brought by the guest or employees, a hotspot, point-to-point links or VPNs, and then the distinction here is non-permanently, because if we don't say that, we can have the situation where an end-user receiver, a PI assignment, is used to provide broadband services. We want to avoid that because that's not really an end-user, that's an LIR, okay? So that's the reason for saying non-permanently. So something that is coming, using the network, going, coming again, it's okay. But what is not okay is you are using the network as a permanent service, okay? And then there is explicitly telling that the provision of addressing for permanent connectivity or broadband services is still considered a sub-assignment, and then only the point-to-point links can be permanent, because that makes sense. You may be an end user, but you have another company where you are not providing addressing, but you are providing the point-to-point link addressing, and they have their own addressing, okay? So that should be okay. We have a situation, well, it was more considering the case for the hotspots, okay? And there were some rejections by RIP, which has basically the same text, to people saying, I am a community network and I want to offer a hotspot, and RIP saying, according to this text here that you cannot use sub-assignments for third parties, you need to become an LIR. Hey, but I am a community network, I am not making any business or anything like that. Yes, but you are providing addresses, so that's sorted out also. It's not the same text. In RIP we have a slightly, let's say, lighter modification, but I am still not happy with that, so I proposed also the same text to RIP, and it's being discussed next week. So that's it, basically. I think that's the end of my presentation. So,
thank you, Jody. Staff assessment?
Yes. Okay, Jody, thanks very much for this clarification. So you're saying PI assignments can have a sub-assignment. So one of our staff queries is, does this mean that this sub-assignment shall be registered on the WHOIS database?
No, because it's a temporary assignment or sub-assignment, okay? What I am saying basically is section 2.6 is not allowing that, but we do that. We have universities which are end users, they have IPv6 PI, and they have students using those addresses, right? Yes. That's correct. Yes. So if you read the policy literally, as it should be, well, even if you are not registering, you are sub-assigning those addresses temporarily. So what I am trying to say is, we are okay with that. That was not the intent of this text, so we should explicitly allow it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we will now take questions and comments from the floor and online votes.
Just to add something, similarly to the case of the previous policy proposal, this is not changing how the registration services will do, but at least it makes clear that you are not against the policy.
Hi, this is Mark Elkins for the record. I'd just like a little bit of clarification. Right now, if I happen to go to a business that happens to have end-user IPv4 address space and I use their wireless network, right now that's legit, no problems at all. If they suddenly deploy IPv6 at that same location and give me an IPv6 as well as an IPv4, you're telling me the IPv6 is currently illegal?
Both of them. According to the actual policy, both of them are a sub-assignment. What is the difference? In IPv4, I forgot to explain that. In IPv4, you typically don't sub-assign public IPv4 addresses because you will be probably behind a NAT, right?
Maybe not.
Typically, maybe not. So that means that if we agree that this policy is necessary, we will need to do something similar for IPv4 as well. You see the point? Okay. Because the definition in section 2.6 applies to both IPv4 and IPv6.
Then your policy makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Owen concerned internet citizen. I would suggest replacing non-permanently with temporarily. Otherwise, I support the policy as written.
I tried that in a previous version, and the inputs that I received in different communities, it was on the other way around. So that's why I have this text, because if you say, let me explain that. If you say temporary, you need to say how it means temporary, a few minutes, hours, or days, while non-permanently is you are not always connected. That's it. Maybe an English question, but I think if that's the case, if we really decide with English native speakers that it will be on the other way around, that don't means we're changing the policy, we are changing the way we write it, so we can even go to the last call with that comment, not a problem. We can talk about that. I think it's perfectly okay with the current PDP.
Okay. From you, so I'm going English. You you say that this one is not, in IPv4, the sub-allocation is not real. So let me tell you, sometimes it's not, you are not doing a NAT all the time. You can also do, you can go to public IP to your student. So if you have the problem in IPv6, that means we have the same problem for IPv4. So your policy, your proposal, is this facing both or is only facing IPv6?
This is, the text is not the same because there are slightly different situations. In IPv6 you can provide a /64, in IPv4 typically you provide one address, and we will need to decide, probably through a discussion in the mailing list, if we want to allow in IPv4 a single address or a small block. So I didn't want it at this round to go for both. I prefer to go for the simpler one, which is actually IPv6, because I believe that in IPv4 this is not happening that much, and it will happen less and less because we don't have addresses. So you will keep using more and more NAT, right? So you will have less times this problem with IPv4. But I agree, and in fact in other regions I got the same feeling that the people was telling me, please do also similar policy for IPv4.
Yeah,
I can do it right now. If you want, when we finish this afternoon, we sit together and we draft it. Easy. But we need to agree first that this is a real problem to solve also that in IPv4.
Okay, thank you. No further comments, contributions? Online?
We just have one last question. Evelyn Bissouna, Afrinic Fellow from Cameroon. It was not very clear how Section 6.8 addresses the problem. Can Jordi please clarify me?
Yeah, well, I think it's clear. The point is, I am not changing the actual text of Section 6.8. The text remains the same, but what I am adding is a clarification that against the definition in Section 2.6, if we are talking about IPv6 PI assignments, that's not a sub-assignment. So it's kind of exception to the general rule.
Mark Elkins, so for further clarification, right now, this instant, the people in this room are using a piece of address space, IPv6 address space, which is a /48, which is from the PI address space. So what we're doing right now is technically illegal.
Exactly. And also for IPv4, unless we are behind the NAT. I didn't check it. Okay. So I guess that means, I don't know, the church will say, but if we believe there is consensus on this, we should also make a proposal for IPv4, right?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jody. We'll just take a few minutes and get back to you.